Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Members, officers, welcome to this meeting of Inverclyde Council. This meeting is being held remotely and also in person and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcasts available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. Do we have any apologies or declarations of interest?
We have no apologies for absence. Provost, we will now move to an attendance roll call.
Provost, can I just quickly come in there? It's just to mark up that I have some members' requests that I put forward, and it's just to let you know that that I am a Wharton supporter. I did previously hold a season ticket for Capello, and also that I am classified as a supporter of the RNLI by virtue of making donations to that organisation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It takes a brave man to declare a mock supporter at this time.
I support this as well. And by that means I'm not supporting.
No, we're not. Councillor Crowther was in very quickly. Diane.
Right, well, now we have a roll call. Before proceeding to the declaration of interest, and the following members please indicate if they are present at the meeting, either in person or remotely. Councillor Armstrong.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brennan.
Present remotely.
Councillor Brooks. Councillor Cassidy.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Clopty.
In the chamber.
Councillor Crowther.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Curley.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Daisley.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Jackson.
In the chamber.
Councillor Law.
Present remotely.
Councillor McCabe.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor McCluskey.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor McCormick.
Present remotely.
Councillor Maguire. Present. Provost Mackenzie.
In the chamber.
Councillor McVeigh.
In chamber.
Councillor Moran.
In the chamber.
Councillor Nelson.
In the chamber.
Councillor Quinn.
In chamber.
Councillor Reynolds.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Robertson.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Wilson.
Present in the chamber.
Are there any further declarations of interest?
Apology again.
Councillor McCluskey.
Thank you, Provost. I wish to declare interest in item 16 on GP out of hours as a member of the NHS Greater Glasgow Inverclyde Board. I'm going to recuse myself from this item so I'm able to participate fully when the item comes to the Health Board for decision early next year.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, as we get to agenda item number 17, Better Buses for Strathclyde. I am the Vice Chair of Strathclyde Passenger Transport. I represent the Council on the board and chair the Operations Committee. As at some future stage, I probably will be involved quite heavily in any decision making. I shan't make any comment at today's meeting. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks.
Thanks very much. Provost, item 17, I'm a sub-SPT, but just in case I get called to SPT, it's a similar declaration on item 17. Item number 10, I'm a member of the Joint Service Committee, but as appointed by the council, so I will be in the chamber.
Thank you. Councillor Crowther, do you want to further declare anything?
I think I already have, but if you wish, I can repeat what I said previously, but I don't think that's necessary.
Especially, okay. Councillor.
Just for the clarification, I'm a shareholder of Morton and a member of Morton Hill. And if I don't mean that, I would be taking part in the membership.
All the declarations of interest, thank you. Agenda item number 2, the minutes of meetings of Inverclyde Council committees, subcommittees, panels and boards. The meeting of Inverclyde Council held on the 28th of September, pages 281 to 288. I will declare that is a true and proper minute. Is there anybody otherwise minded? Thank you. Inverclyde Council special meeting held on the same day, 289 to 290, and further I will declare that that is a true minute. Is there anybody otherwise minded? Thank you. The appointment panel, Head of Organisation Development Policy and Communications Shortlisting, held on the 9th of October, page 291. Councillor McCabe, please.
Yes, I move the minutes of true record clause.
Is there anybody otherwise minded? Thank you. The General Purposes Board on the 11th of October, page 292. Councillor Moran.
I move the true record clause.
Is there anybody otherwise minded? Thank you. The Audit Committee held on the 24th of October, 293 to 294. Councillor Nelson, please.
I move this as a true record clause.
Is there anybody otherwise minded? Thank you. The Social Work and Social Care Scrutiny Panel on the 31st of October, page 295 to 298. Councillor Brennan, please.
Yeah, I move it as a true record of the minute, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan. Anybody otherwise minded? Thank you. The Planning Board held on the 1st of November, 299 to 300. Councillor McVeigh, please.
Move this a true record clause.
Thank you. Is there anybody otherwise minded? The Local Review Body on the same day, 301, 302. Councillor McVeigh.
Move this a true record clause.
Thank you. Nobody otherwise minded. The Environment and Regeneration Committee, Special Committee on the 2nd of November, 303 to 304. Councillor McCormick, please.
I move the minute as a true record, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor McCormick. Is there anybody otherwise minded? Thank you. The Environment and Regeneration Committee held on the same day, 305 to 310. Councillor McCormick again, please.
Yeah, I move the minute as a true record, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor McCormick. Is there anybody otherwise minded? The Education and Communities Committee, 7th of November, 311 to 317. Councillor Clotherty, please.
I move this as a true record clause.
Thank you. Is there anybody otherwise minded? Thank you. General Purposes Board, 8th of November, page 318. Councillor Moran, please.
I'll move it to true record clause.
Thank you. Is there anybody otherwise minded? Thank you. The Environment and Regeneration Special Meeting, the 9th of November, page 319. Councillor McCormick, please.
I move the minute as a true record, Provost.
Thank you. Is there anybody otherwise minded? Thank you. The Appointment Panel, Head of Organisation Development, Policy and Communications, interviews, 13th of November, page 320. Councillor Brennan, please.
I move it as a true record of the meeting, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan. Is there anybody otherwise minded? Thank you. Inverclyde Council special meeting on the 16th of November, 321. I move that is a true and proper record. Is there anybody otherwise minded? Thank you. The Policy and Resources Committee held on the 21st of November, page 322 to 329. Councillor McCabe, please.
Yes, I move the minutes as a true record clause.
Thank you. Is there anybody otherwise minded? The Local Fire and Police and Fire Scrutiny Panel on the 23rd of November, page 330 to 332.
I move this as a true record clause.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Within these recommendations as true records, there are, of course, private papers. Is there anybody interested in bringing up any record, anything to do with the private papers? Then that's fine. We'll not need to go into private session at the end of this meeting. Item 3 in the agenda is the report by the Chief Social Worker. Chief Social Worker Annual Report 2022 to 23. Earlier this afternoon, we had the great fortune of having Mr. Jonathan Hines, the Chief Social Worker, join us here in the chamber, where he gave an overview of his report, which members were fortunate enough to be able to answer questions to. I will now ask Mr. Hines if he would like to speak to his report. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost. There is a requirement in each local authority to submit an annual Chief Social Worker Officer report to the Scottish Government, and the report we're mentioned today is the annual report for 2022 to 23. This provides an overview of the delivery of social work and social care services in Inverclyde over the past year, and also gives information pertaining to governance and accountability arrangements, quality and performance of children's, adult and justice social work services. During 22 to 23, the role of the Chief Social Work Officer in Inverclyde was undertaken by the Head of Health and Community Care, and since May 2023, the role of Chief Social Work Officer in Inverclyde has been fulfilled by myself, also Operational Head of Children and Families. The role of the Chief Social Work Officer is to ensure professional oversight of social work practice and service delivery, as well as professional governance, leadership and accountability. And this report provides information on the statutory work undertaken on the Council's behalf. The annual report will be submitted to the Office of the Chief Social Work Advisor to Scottish Government, and this, along with other reports from Chief Social Work Officers across the country, will be used to prepare a national overview in due course.
Thank you, Mr. Hines. Does any member have any question for Mr. Hines at this stage? Thank you very much. It was certainly worthwhile having our meeting earlier on. Thank you, Mr. Hines, for your presentation there at full council, but thank you very much for your presentation earlier on. It's much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 4 in the agenda is the Finance Strategy 2022-33 6-monthly update, and it's a report by the Chief Financial Officer. Mr. Putnam, please.
Thank you, Provost, and good afternoon, everyone. This report is presented at a time when the UK Autumn Statement has been presented, but prior to the Scottish Budget announcement due to be made on the 19th of December. The usual optimistic, pessimistic and mid-range scenarios for the next 3 years are included in pages 67 to 69 of the agenda. All funding models have been reviewed and remain sustainable in my view. And a proposal is included in the recommendations to generate a £500,000 loans charges saving from 2025-26 with recommendations included in the report. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Putnam. Is there any questions for Mr. Putnam at this stage? Councillor Brooks.
Thanks very much, Provost. Yeah, it's helpful to obviously have this report in front of us so we understand what the future holds. And obviously, some pessimistic information is great within the report. I just wonder, in the national media has recently produced information regarding the Section 114 reports. I believe that's in English context, but I'm sure our Section 95 also can help them understand what the equivalent would be in Scotland. I understand it isn't the equivalent. But I just wonder for the benefit of members, how we understand what's happening throughout the country, where there is councils in Section 95 officers who are failing in Section 114 reports. I just wonder if the officer could give us some understanding or reassurance of where we are as a council. And I'm not suggesting that he's going to say it is or isn't. I'm just understanding for the public and for members who are here this afternoon to understand where we are, because there's so much media context of challenging times ahead and councils find themselves in financial difficulties. So I'm looking for some information on 114 reports.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Mr. Putnam, can you help Mr. Brooks?
Thank you, Provost. I'll do my best. Obviously, the Section 114, as the councillor said, is very much an English issue. And the latest information I saw that is potentially up to 20% of councils in England are considering the issuing of a Section 114 notice, and that's because they don't have enough budget in their view to fund their statutory responsibilities. And there'll be a range of reasons for that, regarding levels of funding, increasing demand, entering into commercial ventures which maybe didn't deliver, in fact actually delivered deficits, etc. In terms of Inverclyde Council, you know, I view, and maybe there's an element I would say this anyway, I view we have a well-worn and tried and tested approach with these 6 monthly updates, which look at the various key risks facing the council, the funding models, projecting forward for funding gaps. We have a members' budget working group that meets on a very regular basis, where there is full and frank sharing of information and discussion, regular reports. Some members may say far too many reports coming up on the budget to the council, to Policy and Resources Committee on various matters. And we also have an external audit reviewing our financial sustainability as part of the annual report that came to the Special Council only a matter of weeks ago. And all of these point to the fact that Inverclyde Council is in a sustainable position as far as its finances, but you can never get complacent. Decisions will be required, and we know that in coming months. A lot hinges on the Scottish Government announcement, which is due on the 19th and then further announced on the 21st of December. And I will continue to bring regular reports up to the Council and Policy and Resources Committee in coming weeks and months.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Is there anything else for Mr. Puckman on this item? Can we agree the recommendations on page 41? Thank you. Item number 5 on the agenda, 2024 to 26 budget update. Report by the Chief Financial Officer on page 91. Mr. Parker again, please.
Thank you, Provost, and another one of these forward budget reports, I'm afraid. So the budget update provides an update in respect of the work streams, seeking some decisions there, other savings and adjustments. The figures included in this report assume, as has happened, that the council approved the previous report and the loans charge as saving. It's recommended in the report that the council factored in a minimum of £2.5 million from either the council tax freeze grant, which has been advised is likely to be announced in a couple of weeks' time by the Scottish Government, and or increased use of reserves, and this helps consolidate and provide further clarity around the 24-25 budget position. Finally, it's proposed that a change in 2.1 regarding the date of a future council meeting, a special council meeting in January. At the moment, the report says January. With the way that dates fall, I'm asking if the council could agree that flexibility is given up to the 8th of February, which is Thursday, the 8th of February. For that date, we'll see how quickly we can analyse the information that we get in the Scottish budget settlement, and we can thereafter put reports to members' budget working group prior to coming to the council. So, Provost, if possible, I would like to amend recommendation 2.1 to give me a backstop date of the 8th of February. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Mr. Puckman on this agenda item? Councillor Brooks, please.
Thank you very much, Provost. Again, but that's quite a page 98. And the note of Appendix 3 refers to the fully funded council tax freeze grant from the Scottish Government, and Alan has commented on it. So the paper says that it's equivalent to a 7% rise of council tax. So I'm just trying to understand, or so that's my reading of it, so I'm looking for clarity of that. And should the grant of the fully funded council tax freeze not come across as Mr. Puckman is anticipated, you'd have to use reserves. So I just want to make sure that my understanding is correct, that we have the reserves available to use if that grant doesn't come across from the Scottish Government. And second and finally, could I just ask that 2.2, one of the recommendations where we're asked to agree this afternoon, talks about a 5% increase in fees and charges. And that's interesting in black and white paper, but what does that actually mean for our constituency? So what is increasing by 5%? Is there any officers that can give us, I'm not saying an exhaustive list, but some understanding of what is going up for our constituency by 5%.
Thank you. Mr Buckland, please.
Thank you, Provost. Taking the 2 points in order. Yes, I can confirm that the balance, if the proposal is agreed in this report, the balance of the 2.5 million, if the council tax freeze grant didn't come in at 2.5 million, would be made up from reserves, and elected members will be aware that there is a one-off boost to reserves coming in from the reduced superannuation employers' contributions, which should have more than enough money in there if that's how elected members want to use that funding. As regards the fees and charges, you know, Inverclyde historically has a relatively low level of fees and charges in terms of the things that it charges for. From my perspective, off the top of my head, the primary areas where fees and charges come in, generate income for the council, are going to be things like environmental charges, like tipping charges. The brown bins are going to be things like school meals income for secondary school, because of course in Inverclyde, primary school children do not pay for school meals. And include some community and leisure charges that are not administered by Inverclyde Leisure. They're the main sources of fees and charges, which will increase, but all non-statutory fees and charges will increase by 5%.
Thank you, Mr Buckland. Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions, Councillor McKay, please?
Yeah, not so much a question as some comments, Provost. I think we're making good progress in terms of the processes we tend to do, and we're moving obviously in the direction of setting a balanced budget. There are definitely difficult decisions within there, no doubt about it, because Brooks has highlighted one of them. But when the government basically takes away your main tool in your box to try and balance the budget, which is obviously council tax, you're left with one other tool, 2 hours. Cut services of what charges are, and that's the reality of. And if we end up with a council tax freeze, absolutely, people may get council tax, but they may get poorer services and increased charges for some of the services. So I said we're making good progress, but the big outstanding issue is the overall local government settlement and the council tax freeze. And I was gobsmacked, I have to say, to listen to the First Minister of the Scottish Parliament today, when he was questioned around potential reductions in community services, sport, leisure, etc. by Brian Whittle, literally MSQ, who's a former international runner, clearly is passionate about sport. And at the end of his response to the question, the First Minister referred to the open statement, where the Chancellor of the Exchequer obviously introduced a cut in national insurance. Doesn't offset the increases in income tax, we're going to see. But the First Minister said, basically, he's doing that and giving a tax cut to political politicians and wealthy people in general at the expense of public services. That's exactly what the First Minister's planning to do with council tax freeze, because we know our council tax freeze disproportionately benefits both the people in this room, I have to say. And people who are on low income, who don't pay council tax or who are in full council tax return, get no benefit whatsoever, and the people who benefit most are people in higher landed properties. I just can't understand the logic of his argument. They criticise the UK government for cutting national insurance, which actually will benefit more working people than a council tax freeze. The reality is, a council tax freeze, the current setup and the current pressures on public finances is absolutely gobsmacking and wrong, to be perfectly honest. I can't think of a worse decision. We've been hearing in recent days the Scottish Government's called an emergency cabinet meeting today, because they've struggled to balance the budgets, like huge deficits, hugely disappointing the funding got through the autumn statement. I would implore SNP members in particular, and all of us, to continue to make representations to the government that a council tax freeze is simply the wrong decision at this point in time. It will starve public services, that's council services and other public services, of potentially 300 million, possibly more, of funding. Every single day we're hearing the police say that they've not got enough funding to maintain police services. They're introduced a voluntary redundancy scheme for civilian staff. We know here, we'll debate in here, the pressures on the fire service, we know the pressures on the health service, we know the pressures on the social care, everything's, but the government thinks, the First Minister thinks, a council tax freeze is the #1 priority to the Northern and Scottish budget. It's absolutely the wrong decision this time.
Okay. Any other any other comments for Councillor Robertson, please?
Thank you, Provost. Provost, Councillor Kane knows that we do make representations and we have done for a number of years in terms of trying to get best settlement that we possibly can for local government from our government. And we certainly feel that we consistently come around this chamber and we take that point and we take it squarely on our shoulders and act upon it. I would ask that our colleagues in this chamber would take this argument to a logical conclusion and also make the same pleas to our Conservative colleagues and say, only ask your government to stop wrecking the economy, which is actually making the circumstances such that no matter what our government does in Holyrood, or indeed whatever we do here in this chamber, Provost, that we have every time we put a shovel in the ground, double the cost of the procurement of the exercise, double the cost of putting the lights on, double the cost of putting the heating on, because of nothing at all to do with the people of Inverclyde, the people of Scotland, or indeed our governments. So, Provost, I would just ask that if we're making these pleas, they would make them consistently into the nth degree across the chamber, not merely to us.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Is there any other comments on agenda item number 5? Councillor Reynolds, please.
Just a comment in reply to Stephen. As far as my constituents are concerned, it's a household budgets that are important. And as far as, yes, maybe in this chamber, then council tax freeze doesn't affect us much. But I have to say that I have the representation from loads of couples with families that are earning money, both working, who are struggling to pay their bills. So you can't tell me that a council tax freeze won't help them. I'm not saying that we have decided and exactly what we have to wait and see what happens with the settlement, but it's not right to say that it's well off that will benefit from it. There's ordinary working young couples with families that are really struggling, hundreds of pounds that they can't pay every month because of the wreck in the economy, cost of living crisis, energy, and that's what's important to them. Thank you.
Councillor McCabe, yes, I'll get back in.
Thank you, Rob. I feel I need to respond. Every single bill for a household is increasing. Every single bill. My heating's went up. Fuel has went up. Food is up. Every time I go to Tesco's on a Saturday, it costs me more for the same. Every single bill is going up. So why should council tax be the only bill for a household that doesn't go up? Why should it be the only bill? Council tax is a vital source of funding for this council and every single other council. And if we don't put council tax up, then we'll get less money. Because the council faces the cost of living crisis. The council's bills are going up, heating's going up. We're paying our staff more. If we don't have the resources, we cut services, we cut jobs. That's the simple reality of it. And I have to say, I am a council taxpayer, as everybody in here is, and I live in a Band F property. Our current planning assumptions in terms of council tax, supported by every group in here apart from the Conservative group, was a 7% rise in council tax this year and next year. That's what we all agreed to. Now in this year we're talking potentially that actually will fund the council tax freeze grant and using reserves. But here we have a paper which is recommending, I'm assuming we're going to sign up to it, a 7% council tax rise as our planning assumption. So council tax goes up next year by 7%. My council tax will go up by the equivalent of £3.13 a week. And I live in a Band F property. 25% of our households don't pay any more council tax from a council tax rise. Yes, there are people in the middle who are struggling, absolutely. But if you think that a council tax rise of a few pounds a week is going to break their budgets, it's not, because every single other bill is going up, every single other bill. So what do people want? If people absolutely want their council tax frozen, because it's so important to them and they're prepared to accept the consequences of cuts in services and higher charges. That's a perfectly fair challenge. Perfectly fair challenge. But I have to say, I've been the council leader now for the best part of 16 years. And in last year and in this year so far, I can count in the fingers of one hand, less than the fingers of one, how many people have made representation directly to me around council tax. But I tell you this, a few months ago, hundreds of people were making representations to the Scottish Government. Thousands were making representations to the Scottish Government around council tax. Because at that time, the Scottish Government, the First Minister, was consulting on a change to the council tax band-aids, which would have seen council taxpayers in Inverclyde and everywhere in Scotland who were in the higher banded properties face increases in 1 year of between 7.5% and 22.5%. And what did the First Minister say? He says that makes council tax fairer, right? Because those who are more able to pay more. It also means that we raise much needed money, somewhere in the region of £197 million for public services which desperately need that money. And that time he was also supportive of progressive taxation and increasing income tax as well. Skip a few weeks to the Rutherglen and Hamilton West by-election when the SNP get a complete tanking, and then he stands up at the SNP conference and says, we're not going to put your middle classes, we're not going to put council tax all the way up to 22.5%, we're going to freeze your council tax. It's nothing more than a political stunt designed to appeal to people. The stark reality of it, people who will receive very little benefit, a few pounds a week at the most from a council tax freeze, but the impact in council services will be devastating.
Councillor Collins, please.
I'm welcome with the comments, initial comments from Councillor McCabe, which obviously backed up what Councillor Robertson was saying with respect to making sure that we don't go for a cutting economy in the UK wide, and we actually use the tax revenue appropriately. We also had in the last paper the effects that the what do you call it, the defunding of councils in the UK, sorry, in England, is having in the UK wide, because obviously every pound spent in England, we get approximately our proportionate share of that in Scotland to spend on similar items. So if the Conservatives are not spending it in England, we're not getting it to Scotland. Take a lot of the comments that Councillor McCabe made as well, with respect to the Rutherglen by-election. But I remember that actually it was Labour campaigning against the change in the council tax to a more progressive form of council tax. So you can't have it both ways.
Thank you, Councillor Coffey. Is there any other member wish to speak? Therefore, can we agree the recommendations on page 91 with an amendment to 2.1, taking it from meeting taking place in January, to amend that to up to the 8th of February? Can that be agreed? Thank you. Item number 6, the budget consultation on page 99. Ms. Ray, please.
Provost, it's myself who's introducing this one, if that's okay.
Ms. Biggs, yes, carry on, please.
So this is looking at the public engagement around the 24 to 26 budget. Paragraph 3.3 and 3.4 outlines the SMART survey that will look at prioritisation within services and also questions around council tax levels. And we're also asking to look, once more information is known around the budget, we will go out for targeted engagement in relation to equality groups and also to individual proposals.
Thank you, Ms. Biggs. Councillor McCluskey, please.
Thank you, Provost. I'm just wondering if I could ask Ms. Biggs for some guidance on the consultation. A number of my constituents would like to express their view on the future of recycling centres, and I'm just wondering under which of the environment points recycling centres and civic amenity sites would fall. Thank you.
Ms. Biggs, please.
I can't remember offhand which one it falls into. I wonder if I could call on my colleague Stuart Jameson if he's there.
Mr. Jameson.
The new Provost that comes under waste.
We happy there, Mr. President?
Waste is not.
Chief Executive.
Through yourself, Provost, I wonder if we can just take this away and confirm that if we need to add waste to council cost moving on, we don't take it.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Ms. Spinks for agenda item number 6? Can we agree the recommendations on page 99? Item number 7 in the agenda. The SNP group proposed changes to committee membership. Can we agree these recommendations? Thank you. Item 8, the review of the standing orders and scheme of administration. Page 109, Mr. Strachan, please.
Okay, thank you, Provost. Thank you, members. So as members know, I've consulted with them over those changes to standing orders and scheme of administration. I had a couple of briefings that led to a few additional changes, so I'd like to thank members for their feedback. It was very helpful. I've outlined the key changes in the report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Strachan? Can we agree the recommendations on page 109? Thank you. Item number 9 in the agenda. The amendments to the scheme of delegation officers. Page 161. Mr. Strachan again, please.
Great, thank you, Professor. Yeah, again, members, changes proposed to the scheme of delegation. Thank you again for your feedback and some other adjustments I made on the back of that. Happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Strachan on agenda item number 9? Can we agree the recommendations on page 161 and 162? Thank you. Item 10, future delivery of internal audit shared services. Mr. Strachan again, please. Page 225.
Thank you, Provost. Members will remember at in the April meeting of the Shared Services Joint Committee, it was agreed to discontinue the joint approach to roads, waste, fleet and grounds area operation and have further report back on internal audit services. The Council agreed that back in May. Officers have looked at the various options and considered that the current shared internal audits with West and Berkshire Council should continue, but some wider work will be investigated around the wider sharing arrangement. A report in these terms has gone to the Shared Services Joint Committee that was approved, and it's coming here for ratification. And looking at, we also wind up the Shared Services Joint Committee, the associated minute agreement, and cancel the elected member appointments to the Shared Services Committee. West and Berkshire Council are taking a report in the same terms to their full council meeting later this month. I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Strachan on agenda item number 10? Councillor Brooks, please.
Thanks very much, Provost. Yeah, so this whole process started to save money in the process of joint services and shared services with West and Berkshire Council. And we've been on a journey and we're at a different place, and obviously I fully understand. But my question, Provost, is have we captured the appropriate information so we have lessons learned? But it's really important. This is taking officers' time, taking members' time, but we've tried our best, we've done what we've done, but as lessons learned being captured in the future of Inverclyde Council, we'll be able to refer back to those lessons learned.
The Chief Executive, please.
Through yourself, Provost, as you know, we've got an independent evaluation, so in relation to shared services, in relation to road transport, so it's very clear what we could have done and should have done, and if we were implementing any other future shared services arrangement, we'll take cognizance of the lessons from the previous.
Thank you. Any other member? Thank you. Can we agree the recommendations on page 225 and 226? Agenda item number 11. It's a remit from the Policy and Resources Committee in Treasury Management mid-year 2023-24. Mr. Parkin, please.
Thank you, Provost. I've got very little to add. Treasury continues to get a high degree of focus given the relatively high level of interest rates, the council's cash flow position, In fact, today I borrowed another £5 million to make sure we have enough cash for over the Christmas period, but this is all in line with the strategy and the update that's included here, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Parkin. Are there any questions for Mr. Parkin? Can we agree the recommendations on page 231? Thank you. Members' requests. Green Up Wanderers Rugby Club 150th anniversary. Councillor Crowther, please.
Thank you, Convener. As you can see there, I've tried to go for brevity and keep everything down to one page. And the wording in my members' request is straightforward. It notes that we have many other items in today's agenda. So I won't spend too much time addressing my requests on either Green Up Wanderers or Green Up Working Football Club. Although both these names do contain the name Green Up, they are both synonymous with Inverclyde, and they are well known to all elected members. Some of us may actually support either of these clubs. For my own part, I have attended the odd Green Up Wanderers rugby football club matches, usually when it has been Premiership opposition from the Scottish borders. It is a man's game, very much so, as it brings back many memories of my childhood school days in Inverclyde High School, where I was persuaded to take part along with other members who would be Alan Thompson, Les Fulford, Dougie Sloan, and needless to say, just over 5 foot plus against other boys who were rather larger than me. I was out on the wing. So I was, and it was basically just mock games. And yes, I felt as if I was like Willie Henderson or Timmy Johnson out in the wing, if I can use the football terms. But well, they could buy a defender. Unfortunately, when I was caught, it was literally end of game for me. Yes, it was a man's game. I was only a boy. Anyway, since those early days, the club back in the 1873, Green Up Wanderers Rugby Football Club has not only survived difficult times in their history, it's now a thriving, and it has evolved in many ways, which is very, very good for the sport itself. On those early days, it was the sole domain of males. Now we have a successful women's and girls section, which this year drew attention from the Scottish Rugby Women's International players, who paid them an inspirational visit. As elected members, should we not also thrive to give the club an inspirational visit and support them? It's also worth noting that Inverclyde Council has indeed supported the club through its community fund, plus active school sports development team, who have been involved with rugby development at primary and secondary school levels. I hope that this can pay dividends for Green Up Wanderers Rugby Club in the future, and that many of the young people who are going through the development will go on to play rugby for Green Up Wanderers Football Club. However, this paper before us today is in recognition of Green Up Wanderers Rugby Football Club celebrating their 150th anniversary, and it's to commend the work of our council officers and staff in respect of organising a civic reception for the management and the players, and to wish the club continued success on and off the field in future years. I would be asked members if they could support my request. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Sorry, just as the British champion, I'm really sorry to interject on Councillor Crowther. And I'm a bit disappointed to use the word man's game. So there is no sport that is purely a man's game. You know, it's great that you recognise there is a great women's section and girls section at the rugby clubs rugby, but you've done a little bit of the service by calling it a man's game. I know it was instantly put, but I don't think anyone's surprised in this room that I've had to stand up and say there is no sport that is a man's game. It is every sport is welcome and thankfully. As someone who's the mother of a girl who plays football 50 years ago, we were told it was a man's game, and it's taken us 50 years to get here, so that every young girl has the same dreams and aspirations as every boy, and that is right and just. So sorry, I just had to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quinn. I had the great fortune of attending the 150th anniversary dinner at the Wanderers, and the point it was put across very much at that time is how diverse a club it has now become. Councillor Fogarty?
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. It's just a comment, really. You know, I thank John for bringing these member requests to us, but my question is there any real need for members to bring member requests in this? You know, at 1.2, it sets out what we do as a council. So my belief always was that yourself, obviously, along the chief executive, looks at these things and then decides after 50-year membership, if it's 50 years, it's 100 years, if it's 152 years, 100 years, they would say a civic session. If somebody comes in and said 5 years, they would say, no, 50 years time. So it's just to get in our minds whether or not we're going to have a whole plethora of councillors and requesting the full council, or whether or not my understanding of the process that both of you and the chief executive goes through is still applicable today as it has been in previous council meetings. So, John, I've absolutely no problems with any request. It's just I would expect that if my view is still there, that yourself, obviously, along with the chief executive, would have a solution just to get the ball on that.
Chief executive.
So through yourself, Rob, if you are tonight, Councillor Fogarty, with just one mind, it's myself, the provost, and the leader of the council.
I was the one that mentioned.
Thank you. Okay. No, you're perfectly correct. The civic receptions have already been arranged for the Wanderers and for the Malton Football Club. However, Councillor Crowther is well within his rights to highlight this and put in the members' bed. And can we agree that the request from Councillor? Thank you. Agree with Malton Football Club 150th anniversary. Councillor Crowther, please.
Thank you, Convener. I take note of what was said, and that's fine. I have no objection to that whatsoever. Anyway, Duke Wharton Football Club and the ground that it plays its home games, Capitol Park, have been the source of debate as to their origins, but that is not for debating here in the chamber today, nor is the argument of where the ball was when the referee blew the whistle at full time during the Morton versus Glasgow Celtic game at Capitol a number of years ago. At that time, I was only a boy. The game that I refer to is still referred to as a 4-3 draw, where Morton supporters went home thinking that their team had beat Celtic. There was no VAR in those days. Anyway, today it is the recognition of Duke Wharton Football Club celebrating their 150th anniversary, and to acknowledge the work that the council officers and staff in respect of organising the civic reception for the management and the players of the club. Like most football clubs, Duke Wharton has seen its success, it's also seen its disappointments, whether it's been promotion or relegation, whether it's winning trophies or being runner-up. Nonetheless, the club has survived. The greatest success since its inception was lifting the Scottish Cup in the season 2021-22 after beating Rangers 1-0 at Hampden in front of 75,000 fans when Jimmy Gourley scored the winning goal. That gives rise to the question, who was Morton's greatest player? A good start would be to look at the club's Hall of Fame, where there was many notable players are listed. It also includes a former Inverclyde councillor, Alan McGraw, or maybe it was the only player who had a game named after him, Cowan's Wembley, when goalkeeper Jimmy Cowan had that game named after him. I'm sure the members will have their own favourites, one of whom I suspect may be Andy Ritchie, referred to as the idol, who could actually bend a ball long before David Beckham. We have to thank many individuals who have contributed to the success of Greenock Morton, whether it be Hall Stewart, who was instrumental in bringing Scandinavian players to Capello, or Douglas Ray, who, thanks to Councillor Hurley, now has a road named after him. Similar to my previous request, I would also, to the Greenock Wanderers request, it's also worth noting that Inverclyde Council has supported the club through its community fund, active school sports development, and that was through the primary and secondary school level. Again, it would be great to see if this was to pay dividends and the young players develop their skills and move forward and play for Greenock Morton Football Club. Anyway, members, once again, this paper really was to support my request to recognise the great historical achievement in Greenock Morton Football Club achieving its 150th anniversary, and it commends officers for the sterling work that they have done, and it's also to wish continued success for Greenock Morton on and off the future years, and I ask members to support my members' request. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Can we agree the request? Thank you. Item 14, Royal National Lifeboat Institution, request by Councillor Crowther. Councillor Crowther, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Again, I'll try to make it a fairly brief on that. And first of all, could I actually begin with one of the key facts of the RNLI. The RNLI is a charity that saves lives at sea. Its volunteers provide a 24-hour search and rescue service around the coast of the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland. It operates 238 lifeboat stations in the UK and Ireland, has more than 240 lifeguard units in the beaches across the UK and the Channel Islands. They are independent of the Coast Guard and other government agencies, and they depend on voluntary donations and legacies to maintain this rescue service. Since the RNLI was founded in 1824, its lifeboat crews and lifeguards have saved over 142,700 lives. Although Inverclyde does not have an RNLI station or a volunteer crew based here, we are fortunate enough that there are 2 inshore lifeboat stations in close proximity, one at Largs and the other at Rue Marina next to Helensburgh. Both these lifeboat stations have came to the assistance of craft and crews of vessels based here in Inverclyde, and the local fundraising group do a fantastic job in raising finances for the RNLI. The RNLI, as you can see, was founded 200 years ago in 1824, and next year will celebrate its 200th anniversary. In those early days, they used drums and rockets to alert volunteers for an emergency. Today, volunteers rely on a modern pager system. Really, hats were used by the volunteers to keep their heads warm 200 years ago. Today, it's helmets that protect volunteers from the wind and injury. 200 years ago, it was horses that pulled lifeboats into the sea. Today, it's high-tech tractors that do that self-same job. One thing that has not changed, though, over these 200 years is the fact that the volunteer lifeboat crews go out to sea in all weathers to aid sailors in distress. Sadly, on occasions, that perilous journey in appalling weather and sea conditions has resulted in those brave volunteers not returning to their loved ones. Incidents such as the Broughty Ferry disaster, that was the vessel, the Mona, that capsized and all 8 crew were lost. Similarly, we had the Longhope lifeboat, which went out into the Pentland Sea during stormy weather and capsized, again with the loss of 8 crews. That clearly demonstrates the determination, dedication, and most of all, the courage of those volunteer crews when they put to sea, and it highlights the dangers that they face. I personally have lost friends at sea. The Destiny, the Flying Phantom, they immediately spring to mind. Unfortunately, that list does not end there. I've lost other friends, and I've experienced firsthand the dedication and competency of the lifeboat crews after being towed back from Wolf Askedale, north of Ardnamurchan Point, to Tobermory. Since then, I have been happy to make donations to the RNLI, which I declared earlier on as a supporter. And but more recently, we can look at what the lifeboats have been doing locally. The volunteers at large RNLI and their inshore lifeboat came to the assistance of 4 persons on an inflatable boat with a puncture at the former Inverclyde Power Station, and they towed them back to Inverclyde Marina and handed them over to the local Coast Guard rescue team. That local Coast Guard rescue team is based here in Greenock. And the last 3 shouts that we had from the crew based at Crew Marina were all timed between 01, 02 and 03, 16 hours, which indicates that there is a 24-hour a day when a call goes out to assistance. So for those in peril in the sea, whether it's a plant bank call or a mayday shout, they will be responded to by our brave volunteers in the RNLI and members. And once again, I call on members to support this member's request.
Thank you. Councillor Crowther, can we agree the request by Councillor Crowther? Thank you. Notice of motion. There are 4 notices of motion. You'll see notice of motion item 15, the Gaza Israel conflict, but we also have another notice of motion at number 18. And I'm happy to take these 2 as separate notices of motion. However, I intend to move 15 up just before 18, and therefore we'll take item number 16, the response to consultation on GP out of hours provision in Inverclyde. A notice of motion by Councillor Fogarty. Councillor Fogarty, please.
Thanks, Thomas. Thanks, Thomas. Thomas, I'll bring this to us. As we know, we're going through a consultation just now with regard to the GP our service. And as most members will know, I at one point in time didn't quite representative of the Hillport. And I was actually the representative in February 2020 when the temporary suspension of the GP out of our service in Inverclyde came into operation. And I'm trying to take a wee bit of time when I'm moving this motion just to go through the background to this, where we are now, and why I think it would be important to try our hardest to ensure that Inverclyde retains a GP out of our service 24/7 and 7 days a week. So the background is that Sir Guy Ritchie had his report in 2015, which was talking about the resilience of the GP out of our service. So there was obviously this problem that we had with keeping GPs. GPs were leaving the service. There was issues regarding the pension money due to changes in the pension legislation from the UK government. And what that meant, the board got presented with a paper in February 2020 by Dr. Nyman and Mrs. Mannion as directors of the GP out of our service. And what we actually stated was, due to these resilience issues and due to the issues that happen with recruitment, GP out of hours, we need to look at doing things differently and locate the GP out of our service in 4 locations. IDH was a close to location. But at that point in time, the Vale also the Deputy Folk service. Now, obviously, at that point in time, I'll be quite honest, I was against it. But I was my own voice in the Greenock classroom at quite helpful. And I stated as what you would expect me to do as a representative to say, how can you look at the most, at that point in time, SMIP figures just came out. And the SMIP figures say that Inverclyde, especially the centre of the Greenock, was the poorest area, the most deprived area in Scotland. And Inverclyde itself had more of the deciles than the SMIP 1s, 2s and 3s. So what I'd say to them, how can you possibly centralise the service to class orientated and leave them right now on its own really? And say to the most poorest members of our society that if you want a GP out of our service, you've got to travel to RAH and face them. I thought it was nonsensical. Now, what has happened since then? So that was passed. Almost unanimously, apart from one person, and as I say, it's what that was. So that was passed. You roll forward for 4 years almost, and you get to here. And you say, what's happened in between? And quite fluent was happening between. The big thing was we had the pandemic. So we had a pandemic, and we still got the fruits of that pipeline, all that thing, it's going to last longer and longer. We're going to have long hope here a long time. The necessity for healthcare in Inverclyde is going to be great in the area of before. So now we've got these proposals to make those temporary changes permanent. You know, and at that point in time, it was stressed that they were temporary. It was stressed that we need to find a bespoke way forward that would suit the population of the time. It was stressed that don't just worry, you've got travel up and down, and with these cars that are buzzing up and down the motorway to take people from Inverclyde up to the RAH, waiting for them, coming back to them. You scratch the surface and you say, well, hold on, what's changed? Has Inverclyde all of a sudden got healthier in the last 4 years? Are we a more healthier area to live in? Have we all of a sudden become richer over the last 4 years? Are we more affluent? Have we moved closer to Pacer? So all of a sudden we got dual carriage motorways or triple carriage motorways up to the door of RAH? No. So what happened in 2020 is exacerbated going into 2024. But yeah, Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board are still going forward with proposals to nationalise the service. And I think it's totally wrong. And I'm sure that the vast majority, if not all, around this table think it's wrong. So what I'm asking the council to do today is to support my motion and to actually look at it and say, okay, the resilience issue that we have, it's been 4 years to solve the resilience issue. At that point in time, there was 10 GPs employed by Greater Glasgow and Clyde. We know the GPs for their own contracts, but there was 10 directly employed by Greater Glasgow and Clyde. Now there's 40 employed by Greater Glasgow and Clyde. Some of them are obviously part-time, so full time, but they are there. And we can actually say, where is that bespoke service in Clyde? Why the rail station down the Clyde? And it seems crazy to me that Greater Glasgow and Clyde at one is virtually penalised the area of most deprivation in the area and actually centralised GP out our service in more affluent areas of Greater Glasgow and Clyde. I would ask you to support this motion. And I would say to Great Glasgow and Clyde, I'm not smart and set around like I do feel for them. So I've been around that table. There is a danger that Great and Glasgow and Clyde changes. Not be Greater Glasgow and Clyde, but just be the same as Greater Glasgow. And be an Inverclyde senior services and will be constantly Clyde. So I would ask you to support this motion. I would ask my colleague, President Gay, to second the motion and for me the floor to all groups. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Councillor Clotty. Councillor Blinkley, please.
Yeah, thank you, Provost. Councillor Clotty had to take this motion. Councillor Clotty referred to the 8th of February 2020 Provost out of our coverage. And reading that report, the rest of the travel was quite clear that it would be an outbound service never played long term. Now, that was supposed to be a temporary arrangement, but here we are 4 years later, and the proposal is now to make that permanent. Now, what Councillor Clotty didn't mention was that report was presented to the board by senior clinicians, and it was based on a report in 2015 by Sir Lewis Ritchie on the National Review of Our Service. Now, Sir Lewis Ritchie was actually at the meeting, and he actually addressed the meeting as well. So I think Councillor Clotty, it wasn't exactly an independent opinion or summation or analysis of the report before the committee on the day. And Councillor Clotty was the only one who spoke against that. I think the Councillor voted pretty much against that, Jim. But I attended one of the consultation meetings at Broom Hall and also the briefing we had from Mr. Stevenson. And the impression I got from these two meetings was that Inverclyde was some sort of maybe an afterthought, had to be squeezed in, we were out there in the limb and the Firth Clyde, and they would maybe throw a few bones, maybe like a transport. But all these things, when they come in and they're in place, the practicalities of how they work, I've really got my doubts. Because I don't believe the proposal is good enough for Inverclyde, and I think that's why we should support the motion today. we were elected to represent people. Part of that, I believe to get the best level of health care here in Inverclyde, asking residents to travel 40, 50 miles to see a GP is not acceptable in my eyes, Provost, and I would ask members to support and happy to say, Provost. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McVeigh. Councillor Brooke, please.
Thank you very much, Provost. I have to associate myself with the comments that have been made by two previous councillors, and I was happy to support the motion. Provost, Inverclyde Veterans Peer Group has asked me to ensure that we have a better service out of our GP service. And as I'm process champion, they've engaged me to see what can we do, what can I do to ensure it. And this motion is one of the things, it's not been brought by me, so I thank obviously my colleagues for bringing it, because it's really important that the Armed Forces Covenant that the NHS Inverclyde has signed up to is maintained. So veterans are in such a place that they feel this is detrimental to their lives and to the service that they give to the country. I thank Councillor McCluskey for here, and I thank him for offering to come and speak directly to the veterans so that they can understand the direction of travel the health board has. So our group has said in support of the motion before this afternoon.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Councillor Maguire.
Thank you very much, Provost. So I would just thank for strong support to McVeigh for bringing this across there. I know that it's just in February that myself at the bottom of this council. I think removing this service from taking place on unacceptable loss or area that will disproportionate effect for area compared to the rest of the health board. Yeah, I myself also attended the consultation events. I know us in this room and our constituents will have a considerably longer travel time and distance to reach the out of hours care that they need. It's a terrible disservice to the people of this area for us not to have an easily accessible, robust out of hours service that our constituents can access at the point of need. One of the things that was brought up at the consultation I think I attended was the fact that these out of hour needs become emergencies because they're not treated at that point when help is required. And I just wanted to implore anyone in this room or in our community who hasn't already responded to the consultation service to do so, and that there are available.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. Councillor Reynolds and then Councillor Moran, please.
Thank you, Provost. I'm happy to support this motion, Councillor Cofferty, but I do have a comment along with it. I too was at consultation in Europe for a while and talked to people around the table quite a lot. And what I found was a lot of them were unaware of the existing options that already exist, and I admit that these aren't totally satisfactory, but at the same time they weren't aware of that. There's a lot of anxiety. When I asked them, a lot of them had never tried to access out of hours, but they were frightened about when they needed it. So I would ask for a note to be put that along with this, there should be an effort of communication to our constituents, how to use what already exists, and hopefully be able to push for improvements in the near future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillor, please.
Thanks, Provost. I think it's worth remembering, Provost, that the board can't put this through themselves. It was a temporary measure put in, and we're about to make it permanent. But Health and Food Scotland didn't allow them, and he said, no, it's not. You'll get the consultation. And that's when Red had the consultation. And I have to say, he's been at the consultation. I was very disappointed with the clinical director, Dr. Google. I thought he was very dismissive of a lot of stuff that we brought up to him. And if you look at where they're going to satellite this service, and Promise, it's in New Victoria, the New Stop Hill, Royal Alexandra, the Bale of Eden, what they're going to come across. Every one of them is getting a capital investment or had a capital investment. The only one that's missing is Inverclyde Well for some reason. Again, so why is all these places within Barrow and Eden get the capital and get capital projects, and again, here in Inverclyde, we don't receive anything. And I won't put to you, Provost, the doctor tried to talk to the patient transport. Hand up any person here who's out to get contact with the patient transport. I don't. I've heard about it. Oh, that one, that's okay, one question is okay. But the people who come to me are saying, oh, get yourself to that age. And I'm jumping taxi for £50 to get up there, which you don't get the bus for. was travelling there 3 weeks ago, exactly fine. I had to go and pick him up that night. I come out the RAH at 12:30 at night. This is not acceptable. Why should we be treated any different than any other patient within the Greater Glasgow life? We're not asking for any special favours here. No, we're not. We're asking to be treated the same as every single person who uses this service. In my opinion, we're not being given the same amount of treatment as everyone else. And I think it's disgraceful that they're even considering doing what they're doing. And unless we stand up here, and I'm glad Sandra supports the motion, and let them know we've had enough of this. As a community here in Inverclyde, we don't want to see any more erosion of services. We don't see any more people jumping in taxis and making them have the money to pay for. And we want to see us be treated. He said at the meeting, the GP says, oh, it's a bad shift for everybody, because you sit for 12 hours doing nothing. I've spoken to other health professionals, and they told me that is not the case. If a GP was down here on a night shift, they assure me they would be busy enough. So again, we're only doing what he's telling us. We know the facts. The people we represent, if I go to meet the council, you know, promise, it's always on the agenda. People there feel as if we are not being treated the same as the rest of people there as we play. And that's how we have to stand up here. Vote this motion for.
Thank you, Councillor Moran. Councillor Cullen.
Thank you. I think hopefully it's going to be a consensus. I've not heard it from everybody in this room, but hopefully it's going to be unanimous support for this motion going to have a consultation to what they call health board as written in the paper here. I personally support it. I attended online the consultation or the meeting with councillors and representatives of the health board, and to me it just didn't seem right what was happening here. It was almost as if the service providing actually failed, and then say, well, actually, there you go, 42% of people are using it in Inverclyde. There's no demand for the service in Inverclyde. So you have to use it in RAH, you have to use it in Victoria. Now, that just seems to me that that's just stacking the deck against people of Inverclyde. So I take the point that made by about equality. I think it's important we have the service that we need in Inverclyde, because as Councillor Clough said, we actually have large areas of local deprivation and poverty. So therefore, any service has to take account of that. So that might not necessarily be the same service, but actually I think we should look at, should we actually have a better service in Inverclyde than what's provided elsewhere? And because we have these greater levels of deprivation and poverty, we have access to, probably can get access to travel. And we do know there is transport available, but we've been told that it's 4 minibuses, and then there might be taxis. So it's these issues that seem to me, when I was in the council, just weren't right. So I'm fully supportive of this motion going there, because we need to do, and I hope we do have the unanimity in this chamber to ensure that, and we'll always get more from, to ensure that what you call it, that we actually give a strong message to what you call it, to the health board, that we want an appropriate and a better service for people in Inverclyde when it comes to GP outcomes. And you know, we have what they call had what they call investment in Inverclyde, had a new Green Health Centre. I want to see a new health centre for Glasgow, and I want to see a refurbished and a rebuilt what they call Inverclyde Royal Hospital. And that's how, if you get these services in the area, it'll help with all the other things in the area, help with health inequalities, it'll help with ensuring that we've got a sustainable area for people to come in and live. And this is all part of making sure we have a good quality area for people to come in and live in Inverclyde, and a sustainable future for Inverclyde. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr.
So thank you for you, because I was just going to, I explained to Councillor Courtney just before that, council officers, or rather series have checked the online consultation, and we would struggle to put all of that text into it. So what we were going to suggest was that we were saying submit the following response so far as able on the online consultation, but that we also write a letter with the full text to the chair and the chief executive of the health board. That's okay.
Through yourself, Promise, and also his, who are overseeing the consultation process, if that's okay, Councillor Courtney.
Thank you.
So I probably said through, I was going to mention as well, I wasn't, just to be clear, Councillor Reynolds, were you looking to add in that sentence into?
I was just saying it should be noted. that the communication should be. This came up at the IGIB where I felt that communication wasn't adequate. Sorry, I should. It came up at the IGIB where we had the strategic workshop planning, and it came up there where the communication wasn't what it should be, and that included this as well. And it also came up at the consultation where just folk didn't know what was available to them. So yeah, it's just to note, Ian, that along with that, there should be a positive drive for good communication in this area.
Yes, it's not for the motion, but it's for
No.
noting as general. Yeah, thank you. Councillor McKay?
It's just to make a point, I suppose, in response to that, we did have a members' briefing on this and the opportunity to engage with Glasgow Clyde Airport. And basically what they stated was to access the GP out of our service, you go through NHS 24. NHS 24 triages. So if you need to attend the GP out of our service, you'll attend the GP out of our service. It's not something that you access directly, I think it's a good NHS 24. The issue we have is that the service that's being proposed for Inverclyde is very limited. So most days of the week, the service will be the RAH or someone else in the Glasgow collaboration. We want a service in Inverclyde, but that's how you access it. And I suppose it's about just making people, if somebody phones NHS 24, they will be directed to their appropriate service that they require, or they'll be given advice over the phone, which may address their needs.
Thank you, Councillor McKay. Before I bring Councillor Clockerty back in, does any other member wish to make a contribution? Councillor Clockerty.
Yeah, thanks, August. I will be brief, or I'll try and be brief. Can I just, first of all, one of the main points that people have raised, the phase transport was a big issue. The consultation units as well were the nursing bed, and there were 40 vehicles available to Inverclyde. Which sounds great, and then you push it a wee bit further, and you find out, yeah, they're available with Inverclyde, but they're also available to the other 1.1 million people who stay in the greater Glasgow Clyde area. So there wasn't any dedicated transport for Inverclyde, it's just part of the overall GP out of our service that's available to it. So the whole idea of the transport, and that was Mr. Billy, I think, when he was questioned in that, said that obviously the point, and this point was well made, there was 4 vehicles for over 1 million people. So the idea that there is people wait for transport to walk to IH is sadly wrong. Simon's point communication is absolutely right. But again, that is one of the problems we get in Glasgow Clyde. Our communication is poor. The idea of a triage service, the idea of access is poor. People do not understand still what to do to get a GP. And finally, I would say that what they actually said at that point in time, they'd be looking for a spoke service for Inverclyde. And actually what we were looking for. We're looking for a service very similar to what they were leaving storage. Feel like leaving stock a spoke service that suits the way we're moving. When they get doctors in from a daily review, they get doctors in and employ doctors for elsewhere. What we actually says, but it's good enough for the daily review. It's good enough for Inverclyde. So I would just finally like to thank members, both it is unanimous, so just thank the members for their patience today.
Thank you, Councillor Clockerty. I think the Chief Executive has certainly had the taste of the feeling of the meeting there. Therefore, can we agree the rules of motion on page 252? Councillor McCluskey, in summary? Yes.
Oh, we're recording
Councillor McCluskey, your question earlier on to Mr. Jimison about the civic amenity site point, he is now in a position to answer, and I think we'll go to Mr. Jimison and take that point. Mr. Jimison, please.
Thank you, Provost. Sorry if I caused any confusion in respect of the budget consultation report. The draft documentation, which is alluded to in the report, has moved on somewhat, and I can confirm that under the environment section, there is a waste section, as I already alluded to, which covers the recycling centres.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Jimison, for clarifying that. Item 17, better buses for Strathclyde. It's a notice of motion by Councillor Cassidy on page 253. Councillor Wilson, Councillor Brooks, are you retiring? No, you're not retiring.
No, it's not intention to retire. We'll move an amendment that we can support the proposal within the motion.
Okay, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you, Provost. This motion proposally presents evidence outlined in the SB case for change document. It illustrates to council the different shortcomings of the deregulated bus market in Strathclyde. And it is my belief that I group as council and others in Strathclyde should be pursuing an application for democratic security to address these issues. That should include the establishment of a comprehensive integrated bus network across Strathclyde under a unified franchise. This network would offer a level of connectivity and affordability that the current market has failed to deliver. That network should include a municipal operator alongside community operators and the private sector. The reality is that Scotland's bus market is broken. The deregulated model introduced over 30 years ago has failed passengers and the public, and has failed its own terms. The 1985 Transport Act was set up to promote competition and to ensure greater passenger choice, with anticipation that competition would incentivise operators to keep costs down, lower fares, and provide services which customers want. Instead of that competitive market for buses in which fare-paying passengers are in the driving seat, what we have is a patchwork of monopolies serving a diminished network. Our bus market has been decimated in the last 16 years. In 2007, it was 5,400 buses in operation, but that figure has plummeted 3,700 in 2002. Passenger numbers have plummeted by 100 million, and 1/5 of all bus routes have been stripped out of the bus network in Scotland since 2007. Meanwhile, fares keep rising, doing more so in Scotland than the rest of the UK. In fact, the relative cost of bus travel has increased more than any other mode of land transport over the past 30 years, and by more than double the retail price index. In the west of Scotland, bus companies have made significant changes, cut lifeline routes, scrap services altogether. All within this chamber see timetable changes, routes starting services scrapped altogether at some point on board. And most recently, we've seen the 540 service cut, and services to my positions in Larkhill and Braeside have been reduced as well. A report in 2021, co-authored by Phil Alston and the Centre for Human Rights and Social Justice at York University, found that our deregulated bus market was so costly, so fragmented and dysfunctional that people could not access basic public services or employment opportunities. Phil Alston said, over the past 35 years, deregulation has provided a masterclass in how not to run an essential public service, leaving residents at the mercy of private actors who have total discretion for how to run a bus route or whether to run one at all. A scoping strategy from CISRA, which assessed reform options for the Scottish bus sector under provisions of the 2019 Transport Act, dismissed voluntary bus partnerships and bus service improvement partnerships as an advocate for achieving the necessary transformative change in our bus network. Instead, it underscores the efficacy of bus franchising and municipal ownership. Another report from the Centre for Cities revealed that the small size of the Glasgow City Regional Transport Network, when compared to other similar regions of size in Europe, is impeding economic growth, potentially costing as much as 4.6% of Scotland's GDP. It's clear that we need radical change. It's also clear that only where bus services are run on different principles do operators buck the trend with higher passenger satisfaction, lower rates of decline, and more profits reinvested in the network. We just have to look at London, where the bus market is rated to high standard, Edinburgh, where local buses are public owned, democratically accountable, and more recently in Manchester with the introduction of the network. We can and should do things differently, and there are solutions that should be implemented. First, it's long past time that instead of happily handing over to private companies hundreds of millions of taxpayer money subsidies every year, we should impose strict conditions on support. We need to cap fares. It's been done by local mayors across England. Single fares capped at £2. The cap in Manchester has led to an increase in bus patronage. In the west of Scotland, we have on the highest bus fares anywhere in the United Kingdom, £2 by a 2-mile journey. Finally, I asked Council today to consider the detailed evidence set out very clearly in pace for change. It clearly shows that there is long-term decline in services and bus patronage, all the while fares going up. It's time to overhaul the bus market, scrap the deregulated model which will prevent this from achieving the integration and public control, deliver an essential public service which prioritises passengers over profit and establishes a modern, integrated, affordable and coordinated bus franchise network for the people of Inverclyde and Strathclyde. I'll invite my colleague, Councillor Gillespie, to second the motion.
Thank you, Provost. I'm glad we're getting this opportunity to have this discussion today, not least because bus is still the most popular form of transport in Scotland, and it's one that is heavily used by not just my constituents, but I'm sure everyone across the chamber. Last year, there were 234 million journeys made by bus in Scotland, and by way of comparison, there were 47 million passenger journeys made by rail. In trying to make this comparison, I'm not trying to set one mode of transport against another, because the prize, as Councillor Cassidy has already outlined, is a fully integrated public transport system that serves people across all parts of our community. But that's not what's happening now. The current deregulated model of bus provision isn't working. As we've already heard, it's left a patchwork of provision, not just here, but across the region. And it's my view that the public and operators alike are being failed by this model. I'm glad we get the opportunity to discuss this today, because better bus provision isn't just a transport issue, it's also a social justice issue. People from lower income backgrounds, people who are unemployed and carers are all less likely to own a car and so rely on public transport. Just over a third of single parents and 38% of people living in the most deprived areas of Scotland have no access to a car. Here in Inverclyde, we are 26 out of Scotland's 32 local authorities for car use, with proportionally fewer people here with access to a car than in any of our neighbouring local authorities in either Renfrewshire or Ayrshire. And so that means that access to reliable and quality public transport is essential if people are going to be able to go about their lives, whether that's travelling to the shops, to medical appointments, or getting to work. We've seen in recent months the inconvenience and stress that withdrawing bus routes can have. In May, a number of bus routes across Inverclyde were threatened with removal, and some removed entirely. The X7, which allowed a number of people to reach work in Clydebank, was under threat, as was 530 from Kilmacolm to Port Glasgow. Both received funding from SPT to save them. The same, unfortunately, cannot be said for the 540 bus, which we've already heard a little about, which was cancelled in May. And since then, I've received phone calls and emails every week from people asking for that service to be reinstated. A petition started by the Gurrock Community Council raised over 600 signatures, and a well-attended protest that Councillor Quinn and I attended in spring brought out many users of the 540 bus. And I know from my colleague Councillor McCormick that similar protests were held in the East End of Greenock, where the 540 was also affected. But the community was told by the operator that the service was not profitable, and told by SPT that they could not provide any additional funding. The loss of this service has cut off Gurrock Town Centre from Midton and removed an essential link between Gurrock and Inverclyde Royal Hospital. It has also removed one of the only bus services for the Weymouth Crescent areas of Gurrock. One resident of Beaufort Street in Gurrock told me last week about the difficulty he and his neighbours have had since this service was removed. Many are now opting to go to Greenock to shop instead of Gurrock because public transport connections are better, taking train away from our local high street. And others are having to resort to taxis to get to hospital appointments and to visit relatives. What might just be a cost centre for a bus operator or for SPT is a lifeline for many others. When these cuts were proposed last year, many of us across this chamber were contacted by constituents wanting us to do something about it. And I'm sure, like many of you, I had a hard time trying to convince some people that councils do not have any control over bus services. And this highlights another problem with our current system, the total lack of democratic control. Whatever reform system replaces the current deregulated model must have public control at its heart. We in this chamber are elected to make decisions on behalf of our communities, and we need to be able to hold some sway over bus services in our area, not because we're power hungry, but because public transport is a crucial lever of economic development. And as bus becomes increasingly reliant on public funding, last year public funding made up 55% of operator incomes, the case for democratic control becomes even stronger. And with that responsibility, government, both national and local, needs to also create better conditions for bus use. That might mean easier off-street parking so that buses can pass, or preferential bus traffic lights. And while I welcome the measures that were included in the 2019 Transport Act, they are meaningless without support from government to allow us in local government to make them a reality. As we've heard from Councillor Cassidy, the B network in Manchester, pioneered by Mayor Andy Burnham, has shown one way of reforming the system, but it is only one way. There are definitely other ways to look. We must learn from that here in Inverclyde and across Strathclyde and work for a model that delivers fully integrated public transport under democratic control. I urge you to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor McCluskey. Does any other member wish to speak on this motion? Councillor Crowd?
Thank you, Provost. I very much welcome this paper, and there was a number of questions which I was going to raise. Fortunately, I have been listening to what you've had to say, and they have allayed some of the questions which I was going to raise. There is one, however, that is missing from the paper, and that is if we could ask officers if they could provide a paper for the Environment and Regeneration Committee. It is quite a complex subject, and if they could raise or rather bring forward a paper so that we could present a strategy that is suitable for the residents here in Inverclyde. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Is there any other member? Councillor Wilson, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Provost. Thanks to Councillor Cassidy and Councillor McCluskey. Better buses for Strathclyde. This particular motion, I understand, is being presented this week at some other councils: South Lanarkshire, North Lanarkshire, Renfrewshire, and East and Western Bartonshire. So it's quite a popular motion that's doing the rounds. SPT, and as your representative there, we started on a consultation into the Strathclyde region bus strategy. This is going to run from October until next February. For instance, the first work stream, the second work stream out of 6 is being presented next Friday. And that particular work stream in terms of bus looks at frequency levels by type of service, type served and time of day, reliability, punctuality and journey times, network stability, affordability, fares and ticketing, information standards, bus stop and interchange quality, vehicle quality and standards, driver training standards, customer service standards. This consultation has gone to all sorts of groups throughout Scotland, including MPs and MSPs. We're already getting returns coming in. But the main thing that we will be looking at, and I know that Councillor Cassidy used this document as part of his presentation, I've written down the word facts. And it's been perfectly clear that the Chief Executive of SPT and by the political chairs of the committees that will be dealing very much in facts with regards to this consultation. We will go through the process, and sometime in the new year there will be a conclusion. So really, I thank my two colleagues for what they put forward. I think they put forward the background very well. There's many sides to it, and it's a very, very complicated subject, and it's not the same from council to council. There are variations, and they'll all have to be dealt with. So what, in my position, and also in Councillor Brooks' position, we may well be involved in decision making, I would like to put forward an amendment, Provost, to the motion that's put forward, that we do not support writing to the Scottish Government and SPT as this may compromise our position. That's the amendment on behalf of ourselves. And do I have a seconder?
Have to second, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Councillor McCormick, please.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. I would like to associate myself with the motion and the points raised by Paul and Martin. My inbox has been full since the decision was taken to take the 540 service off. It was used by the folk in the east end of Greenock as well as Gourock to get to and from the hospital, and was looked upon as very much a kind of lifeline service. And most of the folk that have contacted me have got no other mode of transport. They're not car users, etc. Now, whenever contacting the SPT and making inquiries about this, I was told that as long as there was a alternative bus stop or bus service within 800 metres, then that's kind of deemed acceptable. Now, the folk that are contacting me live in the Cardross Crescent area. Now, they've now got to walk up to Kilmacombe Road, and that walk in the middle of winter for some of the folk and the ages of the people that are contacting me is far from ideal. So I welcome this, and I think it shouldn't just come down to whether or not a bus service is deemed to be busy. I think there needs to be a service provided for folk, whether or not there's 2 folk on the bus or 102 on it. So I'd just like to associate myself and agree with a lot of the comments made by Paul and Martin. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCormick. Does any other member wish to contribute? Councillor Cassidy? Oh, sorry, Councillor Cullen.
No, it's just whether or not I obviously see that the Conservative group got an amendment under up, and I can understand why we would have that amendment. But I just want to avoid the situation. I just want to ensure that as the movers of the motion, I don't want to use that terminology, are you happy to add in the request by Councillor Crowther that we get, because it's been mentioned about this, but it's been a complicated a complicated matter, and it's going to be a part of the ongoing discussion that we sure we have ongoing reporting back to the Environment Regeneration on this, so we can actually develop our strategy as the bus network proposals and strategy develop.
What I think we were thinking probably is that rather than being part of the motion, obviously that's up to the members' decision, but that we would take it as an action, albeit something that would probably follow on the SPT consultation, given the obviously capacity, the complexity of the issues. But I wasn't thinking it was part of the motion, but that would be the members to decide.
Yeah, no, that would be fine, as long as we've got an action recorded, because I think it's important that we bring this back to the Appropriate Service Committee, because as you noted here, it's a very complicated matter, and will have impacts on the local bus company and on what they call our communities, etc. So we do need to make sure we see sight of that and be able to make appropriate representations in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Curley. I'll go back to Councillor Cassidy to sum up.
Thank you, Provost. And I was thankful we contributed to that contribution. And I appreciate what Mr. Stack said. I think that's the better way to do it, rather than having to amend the motion, is to just deal with that the right way. Obviously, there is an essential issue with the bus network across Scotland, particularly with West Scotland. The bus scheme was something that problem through his constituents had, and people across Inverclyde with it. I firmly believe that franchising is the right way to go to solve these problems. Obviously, you're going through their own process, which you will conclude something in March next year from the Councillor Wilson. And I will appreciate Councillor Wilson and Councillor Brooks is looking to pursue enforcement of one act for, and I'll hold the Council back motion.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy. We have a motion and we have an amendment. Mr. Stratton, please.
Okay, thank you, yes, we have a motion from Councillor Cassidy, seconded by Councillor McCluskey. The amendment by Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Brooks. So if we can ask you to indicate your vote. Sorry.
I just wouldn't mind knowing exactly what the Are you taking everything out? You say take nothing of the motion and only just do nothing, take no action, take, and is that basically what you're saying? Or are you retaining anything at all from the original motion? Just so I'm clear what we're actually voting on.
It's still like some staying because the standing orders that we kind of stay less as an alternative.
I was thinking it as a direct negative, so the opposite. So council wouldn't be doing any of those things.
I'm hoping it's okay for me. See clarity where it's required, if that's okay.
It leaves me free to make decisions in the future without any saying on the setbacks in December.
So you're abstaining on your own motion?
Okay, councillor. So we've got the motion from Councillor Cassidy, the amendment from Councillor Wilson. We'll be asking you to vote for the motion, the amendment, or abstention in alphabetical order. Councillor Armstrong, motion or amendment?
Motion.
Councillor Brennan.
Motion.
Councillor Brooks. Councillor Cassidy.
Motion.
Councillor Fogarty. Motion. Councillor Crowder.
Motion.
Councillor Curley.
Motion.
Councillor Beasley.
Motion.
Councillor Jackson.
Motion.
Councillor Law.
Motion.
Councillor McKay.
Motion.
Councillor McCluskey. Motion. Councillor McCormick.
Motion.
Councillor Maguire.
Motion.
Roberts McKenzie.
Motion.
Councillor McGray.
Motion.
Councillor Moran.
Motion.
Councillor Nelson.
Motion.
Councillor Quinn. Councillor Reynolds.
Motion.
Councillor Robertson.
Motion.
And Councillor Wilson.
Amendment.
Motion carried by 20 votes to 2.
Thank you, members. Now we go back to item 15 on the agenda, the Gaza-Israel conflict. These are motions that are somewhat outside the remit of Inverclyde Council, and it'd be very debatable what kind of influence we might have on that conflict. But I know that many members wish to express their feelings of what is going on in the Middle East at this time. Therefore, we are happy to accept both these notices of motion. Page 249. And I'll go to Councillor Reynolds, please.
Thank you, Provost. Thank you, Provost. What you've just said, that's one of the reasons why there's no actions in this motion, because it's not out of our jurisdiction. Over 2 months ago, I submitted a motion to Council on vaping and the public health crisis affecting our children and adolescents. This was passed unanimously, and I thought I couldn't feel much stronger about an issue that was wrong. For the past few weeks, I felt despair and uselessness as, like many, I see the faces of children and our grandchildren in those unprecedented graphic images, particularly for me, maybe wrongly, because 2 of mine were brown. The Gaza Strip is a landmass less than that of the Isle of Arran. Like Arran, it has a sea border to the west, but instead of the rest being bordered by sea, they have impassable, continuous, controlled fences. Another huge difference is population and density, over 2 million versus 5,000. I originally had no intention of speaking to this motion, since the events from the 7th of October onwards speak for themselves, but very briefly, I've got a few comments. We've all seen the horror unfolding in our TV screens and in social media, which has escalated since the temporary truce or the humanitarian pause, which, because of the restrictions in Gaza, has been described by experts as palliative. That means keeping civilians as comfortable as possible while waiting to die, since there is no escape. The release and return of all hostages in Gaza to their families, and the release of detainees in the West Bank, which include many women and children, held for days, weeks, months, even years, without charge or trial, must continue. The killing, maiming, and orphaning of children must stop. We put forward this motion in response to requests from constituents to state our position on this devastating, tragic, cruel, heartbreaking situation. There's no political motivation or agenda, local or otherwise. This conflict deserves much more than this. Peace, love and understanding are ultimately the only way forward, however impossible this seems at this point in time. But it has to start with an immediate permanent ceasefire. We hope that colleagues across the Chamber will support this deliberately clear and concise motion that easily informs the public who are well aware of recent events of our position. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Provost. I think our motion speaks for itself. It's deliberately simple, it's concise. I just wish to make two points. The SNP group come at this from different belief systems. Some of us are people of faith, different religions, and no religion at all, but we're all humanists. And we believe that there needs to be permanent ceasefire. The guns have to be silenced. The weapons have to be laid down. That's the first point. The second point, really, in response to your opening remarks, Provost, I think, we recognise that bringing forward a motion where we really have no control over the outcome is unusual. But I must stress that we are not posturising. Several of us have been approached by constituents, by people who live in Inverclyde, to publicly state our position. That's what prompted this motion, and we hope that all members of the council can understand that and can support it. The second motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Is there any other member who wishes to contribute? Councillor McVeigh.
Thank you, Provost, and clarity comments to this motion apply to the motion by the Labour Authority and just for clarification. But can I start, Provost, by commending the SNP group for deciding very early on to bring this motion to full council, and can also thank those councillors and members of the public who took the time to attend the weekly demo in Clyde Square to keep this issue in the public eye from a local perspective. That is probably now developed into a vigil for the Palestinian people rather than a demonstration. But for a speaking debate, they are Israel-Palestine issue ad infinitum. Some say it shouldn't be complicated, some say it's not complicated at all, but that's probably a discussion for another time. I believe the priority must be to protect innocent civilians. That's why I want to see a permanent ceasefire. And for their avoidance of doubt, for us, I can very much reservedly the acts of Hamas on the 7th of October and acknowledge that Israel does have a right to defend itself, as does any other country who is attacked. But the idea that Israel has the right to defend itself by massacring innocent civilians, levelling civilian infrastructure, and cutting off food, water, fuel, and medicines from 2.2 million people, half of whom are children, is straight up wartime denialism. These actions are contrary to international law. The conviction of one crime does not justify the committing of another under international law. What we have seen from the 7th of October is the indiscriminate killing of innocent Palestinians, civilians by the IDF, whose mantra since they started bombing Gaza is that they are targeting Hamas. The El Shifa hospital has been bombed, hundreds were killed. The IDF are targeting Hamas. We've seen schools, we've seen apartment blocks bombed, women, children, teachers killed, and recently the Chibaya refugee camp was bombed, Provost, numerous civilians killed, and once again the IDF responds that they were targeting Hamas. They continually tell us they are targeting Hamas because they are sheltering behind the population, and that's to justify their actions. Well, Provost, on the 17th of November, I watched CNN, and the TV crew were with an elderly Palestinian man who was leading his family and a few neighbouring families away from his home to move south as he'd been told to do by the IDF. They were walking down the street, waving white flags on CNN, and his neighbour 6-year-old son was shot and killed by an IDF striker. And as I watched the pictures of that poor 16-year-old boy, Provost, as he lay dying after he shot in the head, I didn't see a big burly Hamas fighter hiding behind him with an RPG. Or I watched footage from hospital where a young child, maybe 3-4 years old, was lying in a hospital bed, her legs blown off, still alive. Horrific scenes, Provost. And once again, I didn't see a Hamas fighter hiding under the hospital bed with an AK-47. And this is how ridiculous it gets, Provost. The IDF tell us they are not like them big bad Russians, Mr. Putin, who bomb Ukrainian civilians without telling them. The IDF tells civilians where they're going to bomb them. And that really is very considerate of the Provost. And then they expected to believe that Hamas just hang around and wait to be bombed after all the civilians have left. It's a nonsense, Provost. The scenes on our TV screens say it all. It's indiscriminate bombing of civilians, a war crime. There's no doubt about it. But if I can just turn to the subject of humanitarian causes, Provost, or it's now being referred to as a humanitarian ceasefire, this policy that's been promoted by Biden, Sunak, Starmer, and some other Western leaders, Provost, a shameful policy. It's a clear use of words, Provost. A humanitarian ceasefire is not a permanent ceasefire. What use of humanitarian causes when we know that bombardment will resume? Essentially, it means that the Palestinians in Gaza will be given a bit of food, a sip of water, and some medical supplies before they are bombed and get killed again, just as we've seen in the last week or so. It's the equivalent of giving someone a final meal before they're executed. It is not only morally reprehensible, but it also makes a mockery of international law. The global response to an ongoing bombardment of captive people is an unequivocal demand for a permanent ceasefire and an end to colonial occupation. And to those who don't support a permanent ceasefire or have been supporting humanitarian causes, I say simply this: how many more innocent Palestinian men, women, and children must die? How many more war crimes does Israel have to commit? How much more death and destruction does Israel have to inflict on the people of Gaza and Palestine before you will call for a permanent ceasefire? And from a Scottish point of view, Provost, I'm pleased to say that the First Minister, Hamza Yousaf, has been calling for a permanent ceasefire almost from day one. And I'm not his biggest fan of some people in here know, but I'll certainly give him credit where credit is due to. And to be fair, Anas Sarwar has been calling for the ceasefire as well. Indeed, it is Anas Sarwar who said in the Scottish Parliament in 2021, Provost, and I quote, "After 50 years of Palestinian oppression, the illegal occupation of the West Bank must end. The illegal expansion of settlements must end. The illegal siege on Gaza must end. And Israel must allow free access of food, medicine and supplies into the Gaza Strip. You must all understand that without justice, without equality, without freedom, there can never be peace." And that Sarwar was right then and he's right now. And I couldn't have put it better myself, Provost, because we must never turn our back on the truth and humanity. It is humane and the right thing to do to see that we will not accept innocent people being killed, communities being bombed to smithereens, and violence and bloodshed being encouraged. Enough is enough. We have to work for peace and a secure peace, and to do that we need a permanent ceasefire now. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor McVeigh. Councillor Cavan, Councillor Wilson, please.
Yeah, Provost, I did suggest to you that probably the best way to handle this debate would be for the two motions to be moved and then there to be a debate. So I'm asking the permission to move my motion.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. So I do think it's perfectly legitimate for this council to debate this issue. This is as legitimate as this council to debate it as the United Kingdom Parliament or the Scottish Parliament, I have to say. And our motion that's before you today is largely based on the motion that's passed by the Scottish Parliament. And we are happy, for avoidance of doubt, to support the motion put forward by Councillor Reynolds. We just felt there were issues that were addressed in that motion that needed to be addressed in any motion. And so we'd ask, obviously, everybody, maybe not everybody, but we'd certainly ask the vast majority of the council to support both motions. Provost, I grew up, as many of us did, in the 1970s and the early 1980s. And the conflict in the Middle East was never far from our television screens. And those of us who studied modern studies will recall it was very much part of the curriculum. Unfortunately, we're more than 40 years on from that time, and I had hoped, and I'm sure we all had hoped by now, it would be part of the history curriculum. But unfortunately, it's very much with us today, and that sadly was confirmed by the attacks on the 7th of October and subsequent events that have unfolded. And there can be no doubt that the attacks of the 7th of October were horrific. The rape and slaughter of innocent men, women and children cannot be justified by any cause. And neither can the taking of innocent civilians as hostages be justified. And I would hope that all decent people would condemn these acts. And there can be no doubt, as others have said, that Israel has the right and indeed a duty to defend its citizens and hold to account those responsible for the attacks on the 7th of October. Its response, however, should have been more measured and sought to avoid civilian casualties. As barbaric as the attacks were on the 7th of October, they do not justify the killing of thousands of innocent Palestinian men, women and children. Palestinian lives are of equal value to Israeli lives, and as others have said, the killing must stop now. And the international community, including the United Kingdom government, must do everything in its power to bring about a permanent ceasefire that can lay the grounds for lasting peace. That lasting peace must be a just peace that delivers a viable Palestinian state and provides Israeli citizens with the safety and security they have sought since the founding of the modern state of Israel in 1948. Provost, I haven't sought to take sides in this conflict, I have to say. And in my youth, my sympathies very much lay with the Palestinians. I may well have been on marches and vigils that had been back in those days. But as I matured, I suppose, I grew to have a better understanding of the profound impact that the Holocaust had on the Jewish people and their desire for a country, a homeland where they could finally feel safe. And I realised there was very much two sides to this story, and both are equally valid. Israeli citizens and their government must understand that Israel will never be safe and secure until it ends the illegal occupation of Palestinian lands. And we have seen recent events in the West Bank, which I condemn utterly. And it must agree to a two-state solution. But equally, the extremists on the Palestinian side and Hamas are a terror organisation who are committed to the destruction of the State of Israel. They must accept that the State of Israel is here to stay and it will never be removed from the map. I only hope is to look at other conflicts, I have to say, Provost, and hope that this, what seems to be an intractable conflict, can at some point come to an end. If we look to Northern Ireland, we had decades of conflict there, and ultimately a peace solution was found. Maybe a peace solution that isn't perfect, and a peace solution that still has its imperfections, but we did achieve peace. And I would hope that one day, and I truly pray, and as I said, I've not been demonstrating in the course of this conflict, but I have been praying. I have been praying for an end to this conflict, an end to the killing of innocent Palestinians and Israelis. And I genuinely hope that the Council will support both motions before us today and express our sympathies with both the victims of the Hamas attacks and with those who have suffered from the Israeli indiscriminate bomb. I move the motion.
Thank you, Councillor McCabe. Before I go to Councillor Wilson, Councillor McGuire, was you second Councillor McCabe's?
Yes, thank you. So first I'd like to say that I appreciate the candid thought that Councillor Reynolds and Alfred and other colleagues have commented on this so far today have made. I know it isn't easy to come in. It's easy for us to stand here and talk about these things when we're not in the middle of it. I reflected on the Israel-Palestine situation when Albert had discussed, raised, bringing forward this motion, and I thought similar to what my colleague said earlier on, well, what could we do with so little power influence over this situation? What did we actually aim to achieve through this? And upon reflection and after respectful discussions with my colleagues, we collectively decided that we wanted to call out something the wrongdoing that was and is taking place, express the disappointment and pain that we feel and that we see in this situation. And some of the things that were already being commented on today, I would say are definitely trigger points, trigger warnings for sure. If this was on a news report or on a video online, and some of the things that I say are all reference, things that may trigger people. What we've seen happening in Israel and Palestine is horrendous. The chaos, the destruction, and the loss of innocent lives from both sides is utterly devastating. You would have hoped in this day and age that such things wouldn't happen. However, war is a problem almost as old as time, with no apparent easy solutions for either party. You can see this through the fraught history between Israel and Palestine. From recent reports and news, the tension between both is obvious. And at even times, you can see that ceasefire temporarily seems unlikely, and we know that since motions were originally considered that we did have a temporary ceasefire. Although we are a small council, we do have a big heart, and here continually over the past 6 years, I've heard things in this chamber where all that comes through is that we have a big heart, we care about people, we want people to be safe, to have warm homes, access to food and medication. And whilst our hands are effectively tied and we are hugely limited in actions we can take, we don't hold any statutory powers, no munitions, no armies or vaccines to help bring peace to these regions. And we have no international powers for this. What we do want to do is we want to stand with our brothers and sisters in both countries to vocalise that we stand against inhumane actions and the loss of life. We've heard horror stories of people being taken hostage, attacked at hospitals and at music festivals. Sick and preterm babies fighting for their lives just to have the situation worsen even further because there's no electricity and the hospital has been bombed. Excitement festival was struck down by violence and raped. We find it abhorrent that all ages, innocent men, women and children who are trying to live their lives have suffered greatly because of this conflict, because of the attack on the 7th of October. And it is deplorable that people have seen the access to electricity, to medicine, food and water cut off. Their our most basic human needs being denied. And I hope all my colleagues here today can stand with Stephen, Pamela and Sandra, alongside the innocent people of Israel and Palestine, to say that we find the inhumane treatment of people and the disproportionate use of force as unacceptable. That we are united in spirit to see a peaceful, long-term, two-state solution, and that we want those who have committed war crimes to kill the council. That today that the hearts of us here in Inverclyde are with those who are suffering in Palestine and Israel. Thank you, Provost.
Councillor Lagarde, thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Provost. I'd like to thank Councillor Reynolds, Councillor McCabe, Councillor McVeigh and Councillor Maguire for their quite elegant presentations. Much of what they said I agree with, but the basic premise they have within their motion of an instant complete ceasefire, I must disagree with. This is a reserved matter for policy for London. You did mention earlier on that we have little control over it. I would like to touch on later with regard to civilians, because there I really do agree. On the 7th of October, Hamas attacked Israel with a barrage of rockets. Drones knocked out security cameras and knocked out automatic machine guns along the border. This was followed by gunmen on motorcycles, jeeps, paragliders. 1,200 women, men and children were killed, with over 240 hostages taken. The Sunday Times reports on the barbarous raping of women and the shooting of babies. Thoroughly representable terrorism. The Israeli Defence Force is currently hunting down Hamas in Gaza and attempting to kill all the terrorists. There will be civilian casualties, that's extremely regrettable. But where you go after the bad men that happened in the Second World War with the bombing of Germany, where towns like Dresden, Dusseldorf and Hamburg were decimated by bombing and innocent civilians suffered. It happened at the end of the Second World War with the Americans in Japan and the dropping of the atomic bomb, which was necessary, they felt at that time, to finish the war, because the Japanese had proved they would fight to the very last man. The Americans were losing more men taking a tiny island atoll in the Pacific than they ever did in D-Day. So, as far as the Americans were concerned, needs must. So we do regret civilian casualties, but it's my government's position and it's our position that we support the UK government's stance that Israel has a right to defend itself against Hamas and also to take action to deter further incursions. That's our amendment, Promise.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Woods.
Right, Promise. First, like the second, Councillor Wilson's spoken. But I wasn't too sure what I was going to see here because there's so much of it is loaded. There's so much information, and I do appreciate all contributions, but especially I will say to Councillor for a balanced understanding of the situation that we find ourselves in. So a few of my notes have actually scored down as a result of that. I'm of the opinion that a two-state solution is the answer, full stop. And a permanent ceasefire is a military strategy, and I don't think anybody in this room are military strategists. And for none of us to have picked up, in my knowledge, picked up a weapon and shot it in anger makes it a completely different issue for the security of me and you in here to actually try and be military strategists, to try and inform the Israeli Prime Minister on the IDF to actually how to fight the war. Let's not figure it out. Let's not put aside the war. The permanent ceasefire on the 6th of October was broken on the 7th of October, and that wasn't broken by the IDF, that was broken by a terrorist organisation. So the challenge is for us to make this motion to actually instruct, to identify bullet point 9 of the Labour motion that called that the Israeli Prime Minister has stated that he will not consider a permanent ceasefire. I'm not appalled at that, so that's why I was can't support that motion. It's a military strategy to have a ceasefire, and I'm not in a position to support that because I believe there's a two-state solution. I believe that Israel has the right to defend their citizens, and I would just take the heat out of the situation by saying if everybody stopped killing each other, wouldn't it be a better world? But that's what the world we live in. So that's the reason I will support the amendment.
Thank you. Now, just to make it clear, Councillor Wilson and Councillor Woods, your amendment is to both the motions that we have running at the same time.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor McCluskey.
Thank you, Provost. I would just like to start by saying I welcome this debate today, and for all of us to have the opportunity to put on record our thoughts on the issue. And while, as Councillor McGuire said, we don't have any specific power in it, I still think it's important that we have this opportunity. There's so much that could be said about this, but today I want to restrict myself to a few reflections based on my own experiences and conversations I've had with people in the region over the past few weeks. I first visited Israel in 2008 and the occupied territories a decade ago. In total, I've been there 3 times, and in all of those visits I've had a great opportunity to meet people working for peace in both Israel and Palestine. On each visit I spent time in Ramallah and Bethlehem in the West Bank, but unfortunately never had the opportunity to visit Gaza because of the security situation. I count as friends people who live or have lived and work in both Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories. And I want to bring something of what I've discussed with them in recent weeks into this discussion, because what they say about this conflict is unsurprisingly heartbreaking. And I don't just mean the atrocity that happened on the 7th of October, which I'll address later. I mean the whole conflict, the whole history of this conflict, and the toll that it's taken on people in both Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories for years. What has struck me every time I've visited Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories is how small it is, both physically and socially. The total landmass of all the territories is more than 3 times smaller than Ireland. You could drive between its narrowest point, between the Mediterranean Sea and the border of the West Bank, in 20 minutes. It's the same distance as driving between Queens Bay and Lang Bank. In Israel, despite a population of 9 million, social bonds are strong, as is the sense of solidarity. But that does not mean there is one Israeli viewpoint. The Israeli people are not homogenous. They have conflicting views, different social and political outlooks. But too often in the media, they are portrayed always as a people speaking with one voice. The truth is far from that. And we should remember that for the months leading up to this most recent conflict beginning on October 7th, Israel was divided with people, especially young people, taking to the streets every week to protest the actions of Benjamin Netanyahu's government. And that brings me to the events of October 7th, the reason why this most recent conflict has come about. As both these motions recognise, what happened on the 7th of October was an atrocity. 1,355 Israelis were killed, 8,730 were injured, and 239, including children, were forcibly abducted in Gaza. 12 British nationals were killed, including Bernard Cowan from Glasgow. 250,000 Israelis have had to leave their homes because of the risk of rockets from both Gaza and Lebanon. This was an invasion by a terrorist organisation with a single objective: to kill, murder and maim Jews in pursuit of their goal of wiping Israel off the map. Many of those killed in the kibbutz on Israel's borders with Gaza had lived there for years, fully aware of the risks, but many wanting to build peace with people in Gaza and the West Bank. Instead, many of them now find themselves displaced, with friends, family and loved ones held hostage by Hamas. One friend put it this way when I asked him how people were feeling. He said, "Friends have been killed and kidnapped, living a horror movie every day and every night right now." The close-knit Israeli society has gone through one of its greatest traumas, and the impact of that will live on for years to come. And that horror and trauma extends to the civilians in Gaza. Long before October 7th, those in Gaza were living under a regime that cares little about peace and building a Palestinian state, and more about sowing seeds of division and hate. They have put rocket launchers and military equipment alongside civilian buildings. It is intolerable. And now they face a humanitarian disaster and a civilian death toll of thousands that is entirely unacceptable. As Councillor McCabe's motion lays out, the Israeli people have a right to defend themselves from attack, but this is not a blank cheque. They must do so within international law, and that's why Councillor McCabe's motion today also calls for an investigation by the International Criminal Court into all the actions in this conflict, and that includes both those of Hamas and Israel. There also needs to be far more done to ensure that humanitarian aid reaches those who need it. We have seen how the break in fighting last week allowed larger quantities of aid to reach people in need. That's why we need all parties to get back round the table to continue the talks that broke down last weekend, mediated by Egypt and Qatar, in order to end violence once and for all. As our motion notes, the only route to an end to violence, as we know from conflicts around the world, is with a negotiated settlement. That is what will ultimately lead to better conditions for the people of Gaza and for the future establishment of a Palestinian state. I want to turn finally to the longer-term outlook for Israel, for Gaza and for the Palestinian people of the West Bank. Because calling for an end to the fighting is absolutely necessary, but not enough. And if there's one thing I was to say about some of the motions in front of us at the moment, that for the best outcome for Palestinian people, we need to look further ahead into what comes after the war ends, and also beyond the situation in Gaza to the situation in the West Bank. And that has to start with political leadership, because both Palestinians and Israelis have been let down by the political leaders. This is what Merav Michaeli, the leader of our sister Labour Party in Israel, said to Benjamin Netanyahu last month, and I quote, "The state of Israel is in its hardest moment. The public feels that there is no leadership, there is no management. The public sees the Prime Minister worrying only about himself." And in Gaza, we know that 67% of people in polling conducted before October said they had no faith in the Hamas-led government. And in the West Bank, the Palestinian Authority has not held an election since 2006. Israel's deep political divisions and the Palestinian Authority's failure to run elections has led to a whole generation of younger Israelis and Palestinians being locked out of positions of power and influence. Renewing the politics of both Israel and Palestine is essential for things to move forward. The second is a renewed peace plan that puts a two-state solution firmly back on the table. Even once fighting ends, the failure to provide, as our motion says, A sovereign, independent and viable Palestinian state that exists alongside a safe and secure Israel will only lead to more bloodshed down the line. Israel needs to be safe, and the Palestinian people need a state of their own. That means a commitment from a renewed political process to a two-state solution, the end of illegal occupations, the lifting of siege conditions, and a solution that recognises Jerusalem as the capital of both Israel and the Palestinian state. In Gaza, it also means people being freely allowed to return to their homes and no reoccupation of Gaza by Israel. Third, the international community must come together to rebuild Gaza to support the building of a viable Palestinian state. That means significant international financial support. Finally, Provost, I want to address briefly the impact that this conflict has had on people here at home. I welcome the expression of solidarity in Councillor McCabe's motion with our Jewish, Muslim, Israeli and Palestinian communities here in Scotland, along with the condemnation of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. Many people across our country and in our community are suffering now because of what is happening in the Middle East. The Community Security Trust, which protects Jewish communities, has said that there have been 1,890 anti-Semitic incidents reported since the 7th of October. Tel Mama, who support those targeted by Islamophobia, have seen a 7-fold increase in reports. I am pleased that we will send a message from here today that we stand with our Jewish and Muslim communities, not just here in Inverclyde, but across Scotland and the UK, and that no matter what happens in the Middle East, no community here should be targeted because of their beliefs. I want to close with this quote from an excellent history of Jerusalem, which to me sums up the complexity of this conflict. Jerusalem is the house of the one God, the capital of two peoples, the temple of three religions. There have always been two Jerusalems, the temporal and the celestial, both ruled more by faith and emotion than by reason and facts. Let us hope and pray that in these coming weeks, reason and facts prevail. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Classy. Councillor Robertson, please.
Thank you very much, Provost. I just want to make a few very brief comments, and really what I'd like to do is just bring us back to the purpose of, again, as to why we go forward our motion, which was really to make clear the position that we have for the people of Inverclyde who have asked us where we stand on this as really community leaders. And really just in terms of doing that, I do want to kind of make comment on the Conservative amendment, because I really disagree. A ceasefire is not a military strategy. It's the very definition of a peace strategy. Laying down weapons is not an act of military strategy. It's an act of saying we need to stop and we have to lay down weapons. I may not have ever raised a weapon, but I have raised the children of this community. And at 7 PM, a lot of us are going to a concert, and I'm not it's one of the children who stand on that stage tonight for any purpose. And if I wouldn't do that for children whose names I don't know, whose streets I might have visited, whose schools I might have visited, but who, for many of them who I do not know, then I also can't be content to allow it for one further child in this conflict. The conflict is such that to call for anything other than an immediate ceasefire is allowing children to die. And on a humanitarian level, from a position of faith or no faith, that problem is simply something that I cannot, as a community leader in Inverclyde, allow to happen. So bringing things back to the purpose of why we brought forward our motion, we need to stop killing children.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Reynolds, do you wish to use Councillor Clockerty first?
Yeah, thanks, Provost. And I wasn't like that. I couldn't resist. I'm very similar to Councillor McCabe in a lot of ways. We've known each other for probably too long, for 40 years, I remember the Labour Party. And I'm probably very similar in my outlook to Stephen. Maybe I'll still be some more youthful figure that Stephen was. Well, no doubt what can debate that some other time. But he made a very relevant point. You know, when you think of us, a wee bit of history can do a lot of harm. You know, think, you know, you're not too sure, you've got to double check, make sure you think, you know, was right. Stephen made points about the 70s and 80s and growing up in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And he actually said, how can we move from the 1990s, where you had Arafat, Rabin, and Peres getting mobile peace plans, that coming together, the PLO and the Israeli Prime East. How did we get to that road of peace in the Middle East? The same as Stephen said, we had the peace in Northern Ireland. We're using those roadmaps virtually together. We said, well, how did we get there and how did we get to today? And unfortunately, the answer to that was Hamas. So we actually had in those days, you had the atrocities of the bus bombings from Hamas. You had the atrocity of the market bombing by Hamas in 1985 and 1986. What happened with that? Our sister party, the Labour Party, 20 points in front. After the bombings in 1985 and 1996, who got voted in? Right-wing government and then you had James Finton since that. So see that to and fro in Israeli politics since then, between the left and the right. Unfortunately, we've got now is a hard right-wing government in Israel. And unfortunately, we're seeing that today in Gaza. Now, the condemnation of Hamas, as I say, that the way the reason we've got here in no peace is purely down to them. So I make no justification for them being done. But in this day, we're really clear. We know how important wars are. Sanctuary 6 on it. We actually see when the hostages get released, it was hostages. When the people get released, the prisoners, it was prisoners. Women and children. So I prefer Sanctuary Sword is 18 weeks for the hostages that Israel had in their jails. What's that for? You know, you talk about the Israeli Defence Force. I don't know when the Israeli army changed their names to the Israeli Defence Force. Maybe it was, and I disclosed it, but now it's IDF. So if every army in the world would change their name to the Defence Force now, certainly what they're doing in Gaza just now is not indicting. You know, Martin eloquently told us about the Israeli death, the atrocious attack on the 7th floor. Unfortunately, none of us know about the Palestinian death in Gaza because we can't find out about it. We've got this atrocity of propaganda that's been promoted by both sides, and there's no independent verification of what's happening. It's not we can go in to find out what's happening. So I think that both motions are definitely worth supporting. But for us here in Inverclyde, and we've touched on it as well, the great thing that we've got is humanity. As council give money to various causes throughout the year, eventually asked us through Stephen, we know it's something we get for money to the good causes. What I would actually say to the comment with humanity, the killing has got to stop and the ceasefire has got to come on. And I don't think there should be any about that. We need a ceasefire. We need the killing to stop. And for the sake of humanity, whether it's in Ukraine, whether it's in Yemen, or whether it's in Gaza, all human beings should be treated the same.
Councillor Jackson?
Yeah, thank you, Robert. Councillor McCluskey mentioned, I was going to speak, but Councillor McCluskey mentioned political leadership. We've done this, not to mention the complete lack, the complete failure of political leadership in Westminster. Now, it's worth remembering in Westminster that 80% of Tory MPs, the government funded by Israeli lobbyist groups. 40% of the Labour front bench are funded by Israeli lobbyist groups. Shockingly, we've seen a lot of MPs abstain on the vote. Maybe if we took out a financial incentive of how these MPs vote, we might get a different result. Because you get MPs getting taken out, MPs and their staff, their hangers on, go to trips to Israel, all expenses paid. So if we remove the financial incentive, we're talking here about how we can influence it. We've got an MP in here who supports, the ceasefire, who could do the campaign. We need to remove the financial incentive, the lobbyists, which influence how people vote, because you're talking about human lives here. And if human lives are getting sacrificed, people's financial incentive remains, then what kind of democracy do we have? That's what I want to say.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dunn?
Yeah, like Councillor Jackson, I will going to speak today because I don't think I could do it justice. So I would just want to pick up a point that Councillor Wilson made about going after was it bad rain? So I was just thinking, we've had jotted down a few things on Ireland, British statement after the bad men. In Kenya, the British statement after the bad men. In Vietnam, the Americans, French, went after the bad men. In Afghanistan, they went after the bad men. In Iraq, went after the bad men. Palestine, Gaza, we're going after the bad men. Why is there always so many bad men? Why don't we just stop bloody well fighting?
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Councillor Reynolds, do you wish to exercise your right to sum up?
Right, just a very quick sum up. I want to thank my colleagues for all their contributions. We all know or can learn about the years of history that has brought the conflict to this point, and some of you have gone into lots of detail about that. Again, myself, I've had relations who spent time in Gaza and in the West Bank. We all know that future solutions are for those that are skilled in negotiations. My motion, our motion, is about here and now. Right? So to repeat, we state that an immediate permanent ceasefire is essential so that human lives, to allow human lives to be saved, to stop the killing, maiming and dying, and for peace to be found. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you very much. Councillor Payne? Thank you very much. That was a very full debate. I know time is of the essence. Some of us are going to a concert downstairs, but I would just like to do a small contribution. In the middle of October, I was invited to the synagogue in Glasgow as a service of solidarity. And the synagogue at Gifford was packed with about 500 people. And I took my place. I was shown to a reserved seat. There was various politicians in the room, and the First Minister, Hamza Yousaf, was sitting just in front of me. And when I was shown to my seat, the man says, "You're sitting next to Colin Cowan," and that's the brother of the man you referred to, Bernard Cowan. And he introduced himself, and he's told me about his brother being murdered, how he was in his safe room and get out to have a look and get shot through his kitchen window. And Mrs. Cowan, the mother, was sitting across on the other side of the synagogue. And I let Bernard out to go and light a candle of memorial with his mother. Hamza Yousaf got up and spoke absolutely wonderfully. And he was a proud Muslim, affected by the situation with his in-laws trapped in Gaza. And he spoke, "Your tears are my tears, your grief is my grief, your pain is my pain." And he got a warm applause from the people in the synagogue. But at the end of the ceremony, Mrs. Cowan came across the gap in the synagogue and she embraced Hamza Yousaf with love and respect. And I think that moment was my moment of the year. And I think it sums up everything in Scotland, but it sums up everything that we could wish for in the Middle East. Mr. Strachan, how are we dealing with this?
Okay, thank you, boss. So, we move to the vote then. Take the first motion first, Councillor Reynolds, seconded by Councillor Armstrong against the amendment by Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Brooks. Councillor Wilson, I'm taking your amendment to be that the Council does not support call for an immediate ceasefire. Okay, right, thank you. Okay, so members, you'll ask to vote indicate your vote for the motion, the amendment, or abstention. Councillor Armstrong.
Motion.
Councillor Brennan.
Motion.
Councillor Brooks.
Amendment.
Councillor Cassidy.
Motion.
Councillor Fogarty. Motion. Councillor Cranzer.
Motion.
Councillor Curley.
Motion.
Councillor Daisley.
Motion.
Councillor Jackson.
Motion.
Councillor Law.
Motion.
Councillor McCabe.
Motion.
Councillor McCluskey.
Motion.
Councillor McCormick.
Motion.
Councillor McGuire. Provost McKenzie.
Motion.
Councillor McVeigh.
Motion.
Councillor Moran.
Motion.
Councillor Nelson.
Motion.
Councillor Quinn. Councillor Reynolds.
Motion.
Councillor Robertson.
Motion.
And Councillor Wilson. Amendment. Okay, thank you. I can do this. I can go through the same vote for Councillor McCabe's motion, or I could just record it as being voted on the same way, so that Councillor McCabe's motion be carried by 20 votes. The two members are happy with that.
Agreed. Thank you, members. Item number 19 in the agenda is the Trust Fund's annual accounts.
Sorry, I'd like to apologise to members for my use of language, but you understand it's a very subject matter of course.
Thank you. Item 19, Trust Fund's annual accounts 22-23. Mr. Parkin, please.
Thank you, Provost. This is the annual report on the annual accounts for the Burton Trust and the Watt Institution Trust. The accounts are as presented, looking for them to be approved, so myself and the Provost could sign them. The only other point I would raise that isn't in the report is that officers have been looking at the potential use of some of the Burton Trust balance, which is sitting at just under £100,000, and would ask that trustees consider potentially allocating £40,000 to some environmental improvements within Burton Park, specifically around the covered shelter, the pavilion, and the provision of some new CCTV shelter as well. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Councillor McCabe.
Yeah, I'm happy to support that recommendation. The officers that are considering very significant investment in Burton Park over the last number of years. I think there is an ongoing need to maintain the facilities as well. And also, Buckley has suggested that it's the issue of that here the role as a
Thank you, Councillor McCabe. Does any other member wish to make a contribution? Then can we agree the recommendations on page 257? Thank you. Now that brings the full council meeting to a close, and I was going to have a comfort break at this time, but we are not going to. And we're going right into the special meeting of Inverclyde Council to be regarding the review of the scheme of the establishment of community councils in Inverclyde. I take it there are no further apologies, and we have a full attendance as per earlier. Are there any declarations of interest, bar being attending community councils? Thank you. Mr. Strachan, please.
Okay, thank you, Post. I was actually going to hand over to Mr. McDonald, who's there.
Mr. McDonald?
There. Yeah, he's given up. Well, until Mr. McDonald join us, what I would say, I mean, members have seen this before. A number of reports on the review of the scheme of establishment. So he's just on his way, saved in the nick of time.
We have Mr. McDonald in person. Mr. McDonald, please give your report.
You brought us a slight IT. So just to you promise, this report is one that I've been brought from members in the course of the last 12 months in relation to the review of the scheme of establishment of community councils, and it advises the outcome of the stage 3 consultation and proposed amended scheme. That consultation followed on to account feedback from extensive prior engagement, including 2 previous consultations. And there were no formal responses to that consultation, and officers are therefore seeking a resolution to adopt the amended scheme. As members will recall, community council elections would have taken place in September and October this year, were not the ongoing review, and therefore officers are seeking the appointment of a returning officer to progress the elections, should the amended scheme be adopted. A provisional election timetable is included. Following appointment of the returning officer, discussion with community councils was anticipated around the timing, hence delegation sought in the report to make such changes as are considered appropriate. As members may be aware, there has already been community council feedback on the timetable in the report, and officers from the affected services have discussed this and visited and updated that timetable, and circulated both to members and to community councils. In essence, the update pushes the start date back by 9 days to the 17th of January, pushes back the last date for nominations by 16 days to the 7th of February, and provides that any ballots will take place in the Tube period from the 14th to 28th of February. When planning the timing of this election, officers do need to take account of the competing pressures on the election team that will result from work in relation to the upcoming UK parliamentary elections. CLD staff are already engaging with existing community councils and with the groups and individuals in areas without currently established community councils, and I'll hand over to Hugh to give members more detail.
For yourself, Provost.
Mr. Scott.
Okay, thank you very much, Provost. For yourself, is that the team is working closely with a number of residents across all the areas that's been identified to go out for elections. And we continue to try and encourage more people to participate within these elections. And obviously, we're working very closely with our corporate communication team to make sure there's lots of information out there about becoming a member of the community councils. And also, we're working in partnership with the association. And you'll see there's some press recently from the association trying to support the participation of people becoming involved in community councils across the 11 areas. Happy to get any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Are there any questions for Mr. MacDonald or Mr. Scott? Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you, Provost. It's not a question, I just want to make a very quick comment. I just want to put record, try and give my thanks to all the officers who have been working on this review. It's been a very long and detailed one, and I firmly believe it's going to leave our community councils modern and fit for the future. I also want to put a record my thanks for officers and flexibility with the timetable to address concerns for the community council, and we'll appreciate that as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy. Therefore, can we agree the recommendations on page 1, page 2? Thank you very much. Thank you for your attendance, members. Thank you, officers, and thank you very much for the administration.